So, we are going back to the moon. That's right. Today, we're going to take a deep dive and tour around the moon because in the next couple of years, it's going to be a big one. And it's been like that since 2022 with the Artemis 1. Uncrewed mission successfully tested the Space Launch System, the SLS rocket, and the Orion spacecraft by looping around the moon and returning back to Earth. Now we have the next two Artemis program missions, where the Artemis 2 will start in early 2026, maybe late 2025, if that. And we're going to go orbit around the moon again. And eventually, Artemis 3, we're going to take the next generation of humans to the South Pole of the moon. So last time we took humans to the moon was the Apollo missions, where we went to around here, and pretty much that was very successful, where we led to the infamous one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. That was Neil Armstrong's quote, and Buzz Aldrin. And then we had all these famous Apollo missions, and just understanding the history of our moon and all the technologies now we have. We are eventually going back, and eventually this is the entrance to the space race, and eventually, if that all successful starts, you know, one day we'll send humans to Mars. So let's get ready. We're going to be taking a tour around the moon, and eventually, also, uh, 2030, we're going to be sending humans to the moon again. We're going to do these nuclear fission reactors onto the moon as well. But with all that being said, we're going to be taking a deep dive and touring around the moon. So this is by the channel NASA Goodard. And yeah, this was posted about 13 years ago. Crazy. So without further ado, let's check it out. The original link in the description down below.
To nearly everyone, the moon appears to be a sterile, gray, unchanging world.
Yep.
But while the moon has remained largely unchanged during human history, our own understanding of it has evolved dramatically. Thanks to new observations, we now have not only unprecedented views of its surface, but a whole new tour of the moon that shows how both it and other rocky planets in our solar system have been shaped over billions of years.
So pretty much, let's talk about some history. So the Earth was a molten rock, just spinning very fast on its axis, and pretty much a Mars-sized impact called Theia smacked into the Earth at an oblique angle of 45 degrees, and it was traveling at 20,000 miles per hour. And all of this ejected about a third of Earth's crust and mantle, and eventually, not that much long after the impact, and we have the ring that coalesced and formed the moon. And this is because we have the evidence of the Apollo missions that brought back at least 20 pounds of moon rock, and it's under strict lab conditions where no human with bare hands or bare body parts can touch this moon rock because it will contaminate some of the evidence. That's why it's under strict lock and key in this strict little air proof area where nothing can penetrate you. You have to wear scrubs, and you have to wear these very thick gloves, and you have special tools that can take samples of that moon rock when it's under lock and key, because there's no bare skin or anything can touch it because you will contaminate some of that evidence. That's why you have to be very careful. Yeah, so we do have all that evidence of where the moon came from. That's why the theory of the impact theory was proven.
We'll start with one of the largest impacts, Oriental Basin, a feature that's as wide as the distance from New York City to Cincinnati.
So that distance is about 640 miles, and just look how the elevation gains with this from the basin floor up to the outermost ring. And this is a crater that was formed 3.8 billion years ago by a 40-mile wide asteroid that slammed onto the moon And eventually, that's where that basin began to form because it spread out at a high impact velocity, where, like I said, all that dust and rock just, you know, created these rings. And eventually, it melted the rock underneath it, where it created that dark patch right here.
Using new elevation measurements, we can clearly see the effects of what is likely the last giant impact event in lunar history, with its outer mountain rings rising many kilometers above the lowest points inside the crater. The interiors of some craters in the moon's polar regions, like Shackleton, haven't seen sunlight in over 2 billion years.
Yeah.
However, new measurements
Because it's so deep where the sun's light can't reach it. Yeah, and plus it's on the near side or it could be on the far side. But actually, it's more on the near side. But just the sun's light can't really penetrate that. It's actually very. If you actually probably stand in that, it's going to be very cold. It's very cold.
have created our best yet maps of these types of craters, allowing us to see deep into the shadows of this surprisingly young looking impact crater in the south that's more than twice as deep as the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Some impacts are invisible for other reasons. Although the ancient South Pole Aitken Basin is difficult to see from orbit because it is so large, new LRO topography maps reveal the largest impact basin in the Earth-Moon system, measuring several kilometers in depth and around 2,500 kilometers in diameter. Only the
So
Hell
pretty much, this is another very old basin that was formed early on, and there is some remnants of where you can actually kind of see where it hit because there's a probably a straight line, this little area that could be part of the area. But if you look at some of these like elevation gains and elevation lows as well, so there is some impact areas like little rings here and there.
Basin on Mars rivals it in size. One of the youngest large-scale impacts on the Moon is the Tycho crater. This fresh crater may have formed only 108 million years ago, when dinosaurs roamed the Earth. We now also have an extreme close-up view of the crater's central peak, revealing a
It's
mountain
another
with
example of high impact craters where it can form peaks like this
sharp edges,
because it kicks up a
building-sized
lot of that material.
rocks, and a central boulder about the size of a baseball stadium. The Aristarchus Plateau is another recent lunar formation that has long interested scientists and astronomers. The crater itself, formed in the same era as the Tycho crater and what appear to be snaking river valleys, were actually carved by ancient lava flows.
Yeah, 'cause you can see a little canyon right here where, like I said, ancient lava used to flow through these areas here. Crazy. Yeah, ancient lava flow here too. Ancient lava flow here. Ancient lava flow here. Yeah, just around this whole area.
Next, we arrive at Mare Serenitatis on the near side of the Moon. In December of
Oh yeah, this is
1970,
a special one. This is Apollo 17, December 1972. Just about here, at least somewhere. That's where I think the lander landed on the moon right here, and this is where the impact is. So it could be somewhere. The lander should be about here, and yeah, because it's right next to that.
the crew of Apollo 17 landed in the Taurus Littrow Valley, marking the last time humans have visited the surface of the Moon. With
And you
images
can kind of see some of these tire tracks and um, footprints here and there that are left behind.
from LRO's narrow angle camera, we
So the probe lander is somewhere, the little rover here. It
can
should
clearly
be
see the evidence of that visit. In this
about here.
image, you can easily see the base of the lunar lander,
All right, there
along
it
with
is,
the
right
lunar
here.
rover, parked.
So it's right here. So that's pretty far of a distance, but you can see that there's tire tracks here and there.
Far from the blastoff
Right
zone.
here.
You can also clearly see the astronaut trails and the wheel tracks left on the lunar surface.
Hmm.
We now head to the far side of the Moon, which cannot be seen from Earth. Our first stop
Not the dark side of the moon. You can thank Pink Floyd for that.
is the Compton-Belkovich region, which shows evidence for young volcanic activity in the Farside Highlands. This feature is unique not only because it is
So some of these features here, that most of these impact craters are, some of these can be due to volcanic activity that blasted through the surface, and eventually, when they blow off their tops, it creates these craters also, and then it can buckle that surface, so creating
isolated from other
highland regions.
volcanoes in the area, but also because it is located nowhere near the Maria, where volcanoes are usually found. Also, on the far side, we find the Jackson crater, which, like the Tycho crater on the near side, has an extensive and complex ray system. In fact, this crater is often considered to be like a twin to Tycho. Finally, the Tsiolkovsky crater stands out as an excellent example of a far side crater filled with a sea of
So yeah, ancient lava solidifies and eventually forms a sea-like structure where it's because it's all solidified and hard.
ancient lava, known as a mare. It is particularly interesting to scientists and other observers because of its isolation from other similar craters, as well as its beautiful central peak.
Or like I said, some from ancient impacts where it melts some of that surface, and basically over time it cools down, and eventually it leaves that dark mark where also it kicks up a lot of stuff and builds up these little mountain ranges inside.
As we continue to study the moon, our understanding of it improves, giving us new insights not only into how it has evolved over time, but also how other rocky planets in our solar system have come to look the way they do. With new missions, new instruments, and new technologies, we will continue to improve our knowledge of the moon and better understand the history of our solar system.
Yeah, so if you look at Mercury, for example, it was the same way where for billions of years throughout its history, it's always been pummeled by asteroids and creating these craters and understanding maybe of the moon, it could have little moonquakes where it shifts and buckles the land. That's why you get some of these mountain ranges. Mercury does the same way because there's Mercury quakes because the core of Mercury is so large where, like I said, all that stuff can rise to the surface and cause these quakes where it shifts and buckles some of that uh, created surface and creates these mountain ranges. So on the moon, even though it does have a small core inside of it, and but still, and you can detect seismic activities on the moon as well. And hopefully, once we get Artemis 3 in 2027 to the south pole of the moon, and they said this mission also it's because how the rover can survive being on the the day side where it's tidal locked to the Earth, where it shows more daylight, and then being on the night side where it's going to be a icy cold area. So because moon doesn't have an atmosphere where the moon's surface that's facing towards the sun because it's tidal locked to the Earth will reach a scorching 260 degrees Fahrenheit, whereas the night side, the far side, will reach negative 280 degrees Fahrenheit. So just a wild temperature swing, just like on Mercury. Mercury has really a massive temperature swing, where on the day side it's 800, whereas the nighttime side it's like negative 250. So that's crazy. That's a big temperature swing on both sides. It's crazy. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen on the South Pole because it's going to be much different than how it was on during the Apollo missions when they landed somewhere around here, where on the seas. But yeah, hopefully, hopefully we get a successful landing, and hopefully by the time Artemis 2 starts launching, I might probably do a video about that, and because it's always been like the dream of basically launching and eventually exploring more about the moon's history as well. And take more samples. And we do have the technology that's still on the moon that's still working because we have the mirrors. The mirrors pretty much tracked how far the light goes from between the Earth and the moon, where it takes about 1.25 seconds to get from the Earth to the moon, and then the moon and the Earth back. And then pretty much they discovered something where it takes a total of 3 seconds for light to reach both sides. And they noticed that the moon is drifting further away because the light it takes, keeps adding on because the moon's drifting about a centimeter a year. So yeah, a lot of things are interesting because the Apollo missions left things behind, and it's some of them are still working. But with Artemis, we can probably discover much more about the moon's surface, and especially because it's now going to be on the South Pole instead. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know in the comments down below. Are you ready to go back to the moon? I'll see you guys next time. Bye.